All right, happy Friday, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the 46th Automation Hour. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, all lines are muted. And we're doing something different this time for those of you who have joined us in the past. For this session, we are asking that folks post your questions to our Trailblazer community. And that I'm hearing echoes. A Trailblazer Community Salesforce Automation Hour. If you look in the chat, Rakesh has posted the link to our Trailblazer community so that we're anticipating a lot of questions. So if we're not able to get to that, the Salesforce team can jump in after the fact and get those answered. And also call attention to our website, automationhour.com. We will post the recording and the link to the deck after the session and communicate that out on Twitter. They'll be on our Trailblazer community, Salesforce Automation Hour, as well as our website. And I want to call out our upcoming sessions. We have a lot of people in the Salesforce community who will be presenting, as well as several MVPs. So we are booked out for the rest of the year. But if you have a cool process automation solution that you would like to share with the community in 2019, I know that's a little far away, definitely DM us on Twitter or the Trailblazer community, and we will put your name aside so that when the time comes for 2019 scheduling, we will be in contact. As always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Concrete.io, for sponsoring this and allowing us to provide this free webinar series to the community. And here are your co-hosts, David, myself, and Rakesh. And with that, we're really excited to bring to you a special edition of Automation Hour. We're really excited to have the Salesforce process automation product managers on here today to show us some Summer 18 enhancements, as well as a sneak peek into the future. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Jason and Arnab. And Jason, you should have control.
Yep, that sounds great. Thank you very much, Jen, Rakesh, and David, for giving us the opportunity to be here today. I'm going to go ahead and start up my presentation here. So I'm Jason Teller. I work on the Lightning Flow product management team here with Arnab Bose. I just want to say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're here to give you an update on what we've been doing with Lightning Flow, along with a really cool demo of some of that feature functionality, and also give you a sneak peek into some of the really cool stuff that we're in the process of building right now. So without further ado, our big blue cloud says thank you and mahalo to everybody out there in our Flow HANA. We really appreciate all the support that you've been giving us, and again, many thanks to inviting us to present here on Automation Hour. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to build all this stuff. So we definitely very humbly appreciate all these opportunities to share with you what we're doing to really make your lives and more productive and easier to do your jobs. Now, it wouldn't be a Salesforce presentation if I didn't present a forward-looking statement. I'm required to present this forward-looking statement in particular for this presentation because, like I said, we're going to be showing you stuff that we are actually working on. So please remember to make all your purchasing decisions based on our current product catalog, and I think we should be good. All right, so some of you may have seen a little bit of this intro. We're doing this, we like to do this to make sure, for those of you who haven't, you kind of get a level set on where we're coming from. Also to make sure that our product management maintains its focus on their actual product strategy. Otherwise, we'd probably end up making a bunch of killer drones, which are fun, but probably not that useful in terms of Salesforce. So today's customers expect seamless experiences. Basically, all the companies out there want to compete on the sort of customer experience basis. The idea being you can get an update on your watch, have a mobile device interaction, potentially even track deliveries with your voice. If any of you participated in Prime Day, I know I did. It's very seamless. We're getting all these boxes, and my wife is like, "Where are we going to put all this stuff?" So clearly it worked quite well in terms of seamless experience. And if you want to return any one of these things, you just go ahead and print out a return label, take it over to UPS, and as soon as they scan it, you'll immediately get your refund. So that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here and what we're trying to enable. Now, of course, behind every one of these seamless experiences, if you ever tried to build one, you realize there's actually a process. And something as simple as I need to replace my credit card, even if you go to your mobile app and then figure replace credit card and they should ship something out to you, give you an update on your watch, actually has a few steps in it. The credit card could be damaged or stolen. If it's damaged, maybe you have to confirm your address in order for that to work. If it's stolen, maybe you're in a foreign country and you have to dispute the transactions and then give you a different address to get it shipped in. So basically, it's not quite as simple as people would like, and I'm sure anybody who's actually ever had to work on something like this, the more simple it looks, the more processes and sort of automations have to happen in the background to really enable that. And that's really why we're here today, and that's really what the focus is on what we're trying to build. Now, when we talk to a lot of our customers, obviously a lot of companies struggle to automate processes. You want that seamless experience. You don't want this disconnected experience like the DMV here. You don't see any articles in the California DMV. It's just simply getting worse, which is kind of sad. But you need to be able to, in order to get the seamless experience, you have to integrate systems. That takes time. You have to create process logic. That takes more coding and more time. And then, of course, you can't have a seamless experience without a rich UX experience. So that takes more code. And then you actually want to integrate that experience in all the different places that you want to actually be able to show it to the customer. So there's a fair amount of work involved, and it can be quite a big struggle for most people who want to do this. So with that in mind, we introduced Lightning Flow in TDX this year, and we actually launched it at TDX. And basically what Lightning Flow is declarative process automation for every Salesforce app experience and portal. Built on the current process engine that we already have. So there's two tools that you can use to create processes on that engine. That's Cloud for Designer and Process Builder. And it really starts with the concept of, to get a really rich visual experience, I have these Lightning components. These Lightning components can be built and then reused. And then I can take the Lightning components and I embed them into processes. That's how I build processes with reusable Lightning components. Then these processes themselves are also reusable. So it's really great because you get all that reuse and you sort of just build these things out. And then you can add these processes to your different sort of customer experiences, like a mobile experience in the middle or a console experience on the right there. And basically you can then engage your customers in that way. Now, of course, these things don't exist inside a vacuum, so we have the ability to connect these processes to a number of third-party systems. So you can get that legacy data in there and basically put a nice visual experience around the processing of data from other systems as well. We also have an ecosystem of Lightning Bolt solutions that I can encourage you to check out. From another, sorry? There's something? Okay, I was going to go ahead and keep going. Okay. So basically, there's a bunch of package solutions out there from our partners that allow you to basically reduce your time to market and kickstart your implementation. So if you're looking, if you have something pretty complex and you're looking where to start, I suggest taking a look at that for a particular industry vertical. It's pretty helpful. So with that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the number of partners that we have, customers, I should say, on this. A number of these customers actually presented at Dreamforce. We run over 100 billion processes per month, over 100,000 active orgs. That represents a 500% growth in processes in the last 18 months. And one of the customers, of course, we had to put on here is John Hancock, because, well, since Jen's one of the leaders of this automation hour, we figured we should put our John Hancock in there as well. So thank you, Jen, and definitely John Hancock represent. So anyway, lots of customers are using it. We use it in a lot of different areas. What are some of the examples of what you could do here? Let's do a demo and show you what we've got. So with that, I am going to switch over here, and Arnab will be the one talking us through the demo.
Awesome. Thanks, Rui, for tuning in today, and for whoever joins later on and looks at the YouTube video as well. Hopefully this demo will inspire you. So this is using a whole bunch of new things we've released over the course of last year. And the way this demo is set up is we are using a fictitious company we've made up called Electron Motors. And you'll see three different personas in the demo. You'll have a persona using what we call a Lightning external app. This is a new thing that we launched earlier on this year. It's effectively a community that you can purchase for your platform organizations, where you can expose platform-built applications directly through a community to an external user. We will use Lightning Console and Lightning Flows inside Lightning Console, along with our brand new Einstein Next Best Action feature, which is in pilot in summer, which we did a press launch for on July 11th. And finally, we are also going to show integrations with a vendor fulfillment service built using external services and platform events. And external services is a brand new feature that's part of the platform that just went GA again in the summer release. So the place where we're going to start off the demo is, Jason, if you mind, go to the homepage of the dealer portal. We'll start off in the Electron Motors dealer portal homepage. This, as I said, is using a Lightning external app, which is a community. I know a lot of people who join Automation Hour build communities themselves. So this is using communities using Lightning Community Builder and a Lightning Community Template. It showcases how it's straightforward to go ahead and expose custom record data in your Salesforce org very easily in the community. And there's like a list of repair requests that the dealer has submitted, kind of showcasing that, as well as the brand new paused flows component. So paused flows are available and visible or have been inside of the main org in Classic and in Lightning for a long time, but you weren't able to see paused flows in the community as a community user. This is showcasing how you can do that. So what you have in the center of this portal is a series of goals or tasks. And our vision is, if you want to go ahead and accomplish a goal or task that is multiple steps, needs user guidance, maybe updates multiple records, that is a great opportunity to go ahead and use a flow. Let's click into the repair request task. And what I have done right now, or rather Jason has done since he set this demo up, is issuing a repair request today is just creating a case under the covers. So this is a standard case creation form. It's pretty powerful in the community context because it inherits all the community branding and it lets you create actual Salesforce record data even as an external user who's not logged into the main Salesforce org. But what if we actually wanted to make this a guided process that's visual, that uses a flow, that actually integrates with multiple systems and abstracts all that complexity away from the end user? Well, let's go ahead and see how we do that. So Jason's going to bring up Community Builder, and he already has this page loaded up. He's going to go ahead and delete that create case component from the page. And what he's going to do is he's going to go ahead and use the out-of-the-box flow component. You can find components in Community Builder just like you do in Lightning App Builder. He's going to drag and drop that flow component into the page, and he's going to select from a repair request creation flow that we've already built out. So any flow with a screen can be added into the community. The flow needs to be active and needs to have a screen. All the input variables, as you saw briefly, are available to be passed in via parameters you pass in Community Builder. But just with a couple of clicks, completely declaratively, you're able to go ahead and add a flow that will accomplish this create repair request process for the customer and add that into the community page. So he's going to hit publish over here. And once he's published, we're going to switch back to the dealer portal and refresh that page to see what that flow looks like. So this is the flow, and it's all about submitting a repair request. And this flow in the very first screen is highlighting a new feature that we released in spring, which is the ability to control flow navigation using events from a Lightning component. So you can see this is not your normal flow. It doesn't have the previous and next buttons. It doesn't have a finish button. It's using this Lightning component to select a part of the vehicle. And as soon as you select the wheels and tires of the vehicle, what it will do is it'll navigate you forward into the flow. And not only does it navigate you forward in the flow, it also narrows down the set of repair procedures that would apply to wheels, tires, brakes of the car. So what Jason's going to do now is he's going to go ahead and fill out this form. And this form is a guided form that's showcasing a bunch of Lightning components you can now embed in flows like lookups and dependent pick lists. These Lightning components are available in our unofficial flow repository today for you to go ahead and download and install. And Safe Harbor, this is the new cool thing we're working on, is we're working on converting a select set of these Lightning components that you now have to go get from that unofficial site into components that are just available by default. So Safe Harbor, we hope to get a few of those available out of the box in the winter release. and you'll see us adding more and more of those out of the box as we keep going forward. So what Jason's done over here is he's gone ahead and selected the repair procedure, the type of vehicle, and the urgency. He's going to hit next. And this is going to go ahead and create a whole bunch of different records and integrations under the scenes. So this is something that I like to spend a bit of time on, which is I want to make sure that people understand that flow is super powerful because it is not bound to a specific object or record. When you create a case creation form or some of the record edit form in Salesforce that is bound to a record, you can only interact with that particular record. But flow is interesting because it's abstracted away and it lets you go ahead and basically take action on multiple objects at the same time, which means that for your end users, you can abstract away the complexity of your data, of your schema, and really provide them with the right guided experience. And finally, there's one other new thing in this flow screen, which is the Show Repair Request button. That button is using a Lightning navigation event. And if you click on that button, it's going to automatically navigate you directly into the repair request record that was created. So again, this is a combination of new features like local actions and the ability to go ahead and wrap Lightning navigation events and Lightning components and then reuse those components within Flow. Not only can you use Lightning components for those visual things like we looked at, like navigation or dependent pick lists or lookups, but you can also use Lightning components within Flow for nav and drive this kind of navigation behavior or finish behavior for customers. And as you can see, this navigation event works even in this Lightning external app, which is a community. So at this point in time in the story, what we've done is we've gone ahead and showed how that dealer experience in the Lightning external app can be made automated and guided using Flow. Now, let's take a look at what the experience is like for somebody who works at headquarters for Electron Motors and actually needs to go ahead and fulfill those requests. So Eric Ware loves using Salesforce, and what's happened over here is if Eric scrolls down and takes a look at his chatter notifications, he sees that 1 minute ago there was a new Bailey brake replacement request that has come in. So he's going to click on the Electron X23 front record over there and see what he can do to go ahead and satisfy these the requests from the dealer. What we're doing over here is we've embedded in a Lightning flow using the standard flow Lightning component that's available in Lightning App Builder, and that is what is going to go ahead and process these orders. So what he's going to do is he's going to select brake discs first and hit next. And this is going to use a local action to automatically pop open the brake discs repair part into a new Lightning console tab. And on the right-hand side, you see the Einstein Next Best Action Einstein recommendation popping up. So what we've done in this org is we've created a Next Best Action strategy that looks at existing orders. And if there's an existing order from a vendor that has not yet been fulfilled by the vendor, then it recommends adding on new orders to that to reduce your shipping costs. So what an Einstein Next Best Action does is under the covers, it looks at every possible action it can recommend, filters them down, and then proposes between 1 to 4 of these actions to the end user. This is configurable in the Lightning component for Next Best Action. And the exact strategies are things you can configure as well. This is in a pilot stage right now. You can request to get added to the pilot if you want to play around with Einstein Next Best Action. Safe Harbor when it GAs, our general availability target is spring of next year. It is going to be a paid add-on. And it's also going to have integrations with Einstein Prediction Builder and things like Einstein Discovery. So you can actually use machine learning to figure out which specific proposition or action should be showed to your end user. So I won't spend too much more time on how NBA works right now. We'll do a reveal over the next 3 to 6 months as we get towards GA. But I want you all to be aware that this exists. It's in pilot. If you really want to play with it, we can get you a sneak preview, sign up for the pilot. And what happens when you take action on the Next Best Action is if you click on that Purchase Break This button, this launches a flow. And what that flow is doing is it's using external services to contact a Heroku service that's actually going to do the fulfillment. It's automatically receiving back the part number and the unit price, and it's automatically going ahead and updating the record to go ahead and fill in the part number and the unit price in this repair part record. So the whole sort of process of contacting a third-party service, of actually filling in the record detail updates, all that kind of stuff, is being taken care of automatically with the flow. Now let's go ahead and fulfill the other two repair orders. So we'll go ahead and order some brake fluids. This is showing that Einstein actually doesn't have a recommendation in this case. Maybe we don't have any existing orders for brake fluids on the way. So we're going to click on the select vendor button and then run a flow from here. This is using launching a flow from a quick action. We made this generally available in spring. So this is a really simple declarative way to go ahead and associate a flow with a button on a record. And if you have an input variable of type text called record ID defined in your flow, that input variable gets automatically populated with the record ID from which that button is being clicked. So that's what's happening over here. It's launching in a modal. And when Jason clicks next over here, this flow behaves very much similarly to the flow that ran when we ran the Einstein next best action recommendation, where it uses external services under the covers to fetch back the part number and the unit price and fill all that stuff out. So we'll do this one more time for the brake rotors, and you'll just see the same thing in action. Like we're going ahead and issuing all of these parts requests to OEM vendors like, whatever, a brake company of your choice or an oil company of your choice who's going to go ahead and actually send these parts over. So the important thing to take away from that particular part of the demo is, how can you really extend what your Lightning app can do by leveraging the power of flow plus next best action plus local action plus external services to really automate the steps that the end user is taking over here. They're not having to switch between screens manually. They're not having to go ahead and open up a different ordering service and fill in the data over there. You as the admin are able to go and deliver this seamless experience which abstracts away all that complexity. So now that we've gone ahead and ordered all these parts, Jason's going to show us something pretty cool where we're going to play the role of the supplier. And this is a portal showing what the supplier's view looks like. And for simplicity, what we've done is we've said that all of the parts are being supplied by the same supplier, even though there are different things like wheels, tires, and brake oil. So there would typically be three different people, but for the purpose of the demo, we're just going to use one. And what you're seeing in this sort of frame over here is this is actually a Heroku app we've embedded into a Lightning community. And Heroku is going to send back notifications to Salesforce using platform events. So what Jason's doing over here is he's showing you the event monitor in the background over there. That's in the main Salesforce org. And from this Heroku app, whenever he fulfills a particular part, that's going to submit back a platform event, which you can then monitor using that monitor events Lightning component, which I believe, Jason, you can just get off AppExchange. Is that right?
That's correct. This is actually the IoT package has a set of Lightning components to show events that have been fired. And so in this case, you can just go ahead and drag and drop that component in from the IoT package. One thing to note there is that it does require a time-related field because the component has a sort of concept of progression of time associated with it. So just to get it working, that was something you have to add in.
So the reason why we're showing this is a lot of the cases we've seen from customers have to deal with Salesforce having to react to an asynchronous update from a different service. So for these part fulfillment things, typically what's going to happen is they're going to go ahead and ship the part out. And when they do that, they want to send a notification to Salesforce saying, oh, you know what, I've shipped the part out. Here's the shipping number. You should expect it by such and such date. And what we've got is we've got a process builder process running under the covers that is looking at these platform events. And once all three events come back indicating that all three parts have been fulfilled, it's going to go ahead and automatically update the repair request and say, hey, we've got all of these parts on the way. We know they'll arrive at such and such date. Let's automatically let the dealer know that they can schedule the repair for that date onwards. So we want to reduce the amount of mundane work that the Electron Motors employee has to do. So once Eric Ware, the Electron Motors employee, has submitted these part requests, it's basically all automatic from that point onwards. As Jason's done over here, he's gone ahead and fulfilled all those orders from the Heroku service. And as those events have come in, everything is now automatically updated to fulfilled because it's using the process builder process under the covers. And then Eric, where the internal user has been notified that all parts have been fulfilled and we are ready for the repair procedure. So that's kind of the demo we wanted to show you guys to sort of cover the best of summer 18. Of everything that you saw over here, only the next best action piece is in pilot. Everything else, like supporting platform events and process builder, supporting external services, supporting Lightning components in Flow, supporting paused flows in the community, all of that is generally available in the summer release. So everything is things that you can actually play with. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason, and he's going to explain a little bit more about how we orchestrated these multiple processes using events and external services.
Great. Thank you, Arnab, for walking us through all of that. As you can tell, there's a lot you can do with Flow events and different services, and you can actually handle a fair amount of complexity, both visually and from the process perspective, if you sort of split it up into these manageable chunks that you can then go through. One of the things that we often get questions about, the sort of screen-based flows and the actions on records and things kind of makes sense to a lot of people. Sort of understanding what happens on the back end that Arnab kind of alluded to, and we were trying to demonstrate with the screen where we were monitoring the event bus and basically seeing the events that got fired, is how do I make this sort of work? How does this sort of work on the back end when we go ahead and place these orders via external services and then we fulfill them with the events? So I'm just going to walk through that one section just to help people understand. So basically, each time I went and selected a vendor and I picked a particular vendor with the unit price for the part and I clicked next, I generated an external services call, right? So external services is GA now, and basically you can use that via Swagger API definition to easily hook up to a third-party service. In this case, we had our part supplier here on the right. That's a Heroku app that acts as our external service. So with each part order call, each time I click next, we do the external service call. Each one of these is then sent over to the part supplier. So if you remember, when we look at the part supplier Heroku app embedded screen, it had 3 specific orders. That was the state that we were in at this point in time. Each order had been sent, and that's it. The next thing that we did was that each time I clicked on the checkbox and hit submit, and we saw that event fired, what was happening was it was going ahead and then creating a platform event and submitting it to our event bus. And the event bus was that fulfillment event. We had that fulfillment event. That fulfillment event was then subscribed to by a process builder process. The process builder process would trigger on the fulfillment of that platform event and update the part request record to say that the order had actually been fulfilled. So obviously we can't continue though until all 3 of these have been fulfilled. So in this case, we used a roll-up field to determine whether or not all 3 had been fulfilled and whether or not the process could continue. You can use a roll-up field. You can use criteria within Process Builder. There's actually a number of different ways you can do that. In our case, we just wanted to keep it sort of straightforward, so we went ahead and used a roll-up field that we then decremented with each additional part that got fulfilled. So the second part fulfillment, we update the part request record, but we're still not there yet. We need to get all 3. So if you recall, each time I clicked submit, I saw a little dot, then I saw a little dot, then I saw all 3 dots. When I saw all 3 dots, then I knew that I was done. The roll-up criteria was fulfilled, and we go ahead and move on with the process. In this case, basically providing the chatter post that said all the parts have been fulfilled. We're ready for the service procedure. So that's sort of the end-to-end on the demo. I'm going to pause really quick to see if there's any sort of questions around that. It's a lot to go over. We kind of did our best to explain it, but if there are any questions, please let us know.
So currently we have 1 question submitted in the Trailblazer community. Again, for those who have questions, go out to the Trailblazer Community Salesforce Automation Hour. You'll find a link to that in the chat. So Eric wants to know, what restrictions are there for including Lightning components in a Lightning flow, especially if the flow is being called from a standard button?
So, we'd recommend that you launch the flow from a quick action in Lightning experience. That will make sure that everything is running in the Lightning runtime and there's no special case required. So that's the most default down the middle way to do it. If you're running a flow inside of Classic, you need to make sure that the flow is embedded using a Lightning out container, and every Lightning component inside the flow will also need to be enabled for Lightning out, made a global Lightning out capable component. Otherwise, the flow is not going to work. So For Classic, the high-level message is use Lightning Out and make sure that all components inside the flow are Lightning Out supported, because even if one of them isn't, then it won't work. If you're using Lightning Runtime and Lightning Experience, everything is just going to work by default.
While we wait to see if there are any other questions, just a quick clarification, I guess, for Arnab or Jason. You mentioned local actions. For those out there who don't know what local actions are from Summer 18, can you just elaborate on what that is?
Yeah, maybe Jason, do you mind bringing up the local actions sort of release notes? We can have that up. I'll sort of get started and give a quick overview. Local actions are a new kind of extension that you can add to Flow. There are a whole bunch of sample local actions available in our unofficial site, as well as actually there's an official force.com GitHub repo that has a bunch of local actions in there as well. Think of local actions as a Lightning component that you can add into the middle of your flow that doesn't have any UI, but uses the client-side JavaScript, like in the browser, to go ahead and take an action. And the most common way to use this is a navigation event. So Lightning supports navigation events on the browser side. There's a whole bunch of these that are documented, like navigating to a related list, navigating to a specific record, opening a web page, showing a toast. And if you create a Lightning component that is mocked up for use within Flow via this local actions feature, then it becomes an element in the Flow palette that you can just drag and drop onto the canvas. So you write it in code once, or you download the code from our force.com official GitHub repo, and then you're good to go from that point onwards in terms of using these declaratively. Jason, if you search for force.com space Lightning Flow GitHub, you'll get a link to that. Lightning Flow, force.com. I think it's force.com. It's fine. There you go. This is the first link. So this is the official set of components. And if you see Flow local actions and you click on that first folder, that has a whole bunch of these that we've published officially. And it has readmes and guides, and obviously this will match what you see in the release notes and documentation as well. So we've got one for connecting to a third-party service. We've got one for refreshing the screen. We've got one for showing toast messages and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, thank you. Eric had a follow-up question to the first one, where you mentioned using quick actions to launch Flow. He's noting quick actions won't take multiple parameters. So how does he solve for that?
Use a record lookup inside the flow. Like the quick action will pass in the record ID, and for other parameters you can use record lookups or just the standard flow elements to go ahead and figure that out. In most of the use cases we've seen, the record ID of the page you're launching from is sufficient.
All right, that is it for open questions.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move on then. So I think the reason we didn't have as many questions right now is because everybody's holding their breath and refuses to talk because they really want to hear about the roadmap and what we have in store. So y'all can breathe easy now. We're going to talk about the roadmap. We're going to tell you a lot of the stuff we're actually building. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we did mention local actions and our reusable components. Just a quick mention here. We talk about enhancing Flow with reusable components. There are screen components that are visually focused, as well as Flow actions that we consider sort of standalone elements that you pull in from the palette and actually leverage inside of your Flow directly. We showed you this in the demo. You can control the visual experience with screen overrides. So you can create navigation. You can control the visual area. We mentioned how you can suppress the standard header and footer for the pause, the next, and the finish buttons, and basically create that really clean visual experience. And this was introduced in Spring 18 release. We just covered Flow local actions, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Since it's a new class of Flow elements, you can use the power of Lightning components to access remote data, for example. You can interact with the browser to do features like show toast, new tab, etc. And those show up again in the Flow palette over here under local actions. Once you create them, you just drag and drop and use them inside of your flow. The flow finishing behavior control that Arnab described and we showed you in the demo, this is something we've actually gotten a lot of requests for, so something that's probably worth checking out because you can then take your flow to a record as part of the finishing behavior. And
Safe Harbor, this is one of the things we're looking to see if we could add out of the box so that you at least get this local action by default. It's available, there are various flavors of this are available in that force.com GitHub repo as well as the unofficial site. But one of the things we're looking at is, can we actually make this be just part of the product so you get it with every org?
So as Arnab said, Safe Harbor for winter, Safe Harbor again. This is stuff that these are the sort of flow extensions, we're calling them, that we have planned for the next releases, and we're hoping to have them bundled with all the Salesforce orgs. You can have things like the record form, which is pretty powerful, where basically when you provide an object name and a record ID on the actual flow screen, you'll actually get the entire layout for that record form that you can fill out. So that's pretty powerful. Obviously, things that we've shown you quite a bit of, navigation. So basically, you have options to navigate the user to different record list web pages and such, as Arnab was describing. Something we're pretty excited to hopefully, again, Safe Harbor deliver in our Winter 19 release.
Yeah, and the way we are doing this is most of these components are taking existing Lightning-based components. For the developers on the call, you're probably familiar with Lightning-based components. And we are adding a layer of business logic so they're easy to use and automatically available within Flow Builder. But what this also means is, in case we can't get all of these done for the winter release, or if you are working on a project where you need this right now and you can't wait for winter, you can go ahead and wrap those, and some samples are already available on that unofficial site and Alex's GitHub repo. So it'll give you a sense for what is possible today, get you unblocked, and then we are constantly working to lower the bar for entry and make things more declarative with every release.
Cool. So moving on, another one of the areas that we're looking into is the ability to opt in for flow on CI/CD and leverage SFDX in this concept. For the developers out there, this will be pretty simple and understandable to a lot of people. I'm just going to give you quick backgrounds for some of the other folks on the call that may not quite get what I meant by that single line full of acronyms. So CI/CD is continuous integration and continuous delivery. It's a software development best practice, and it includes things like leveraging a VCS, yet another acronym, a version control system for your code versioning. So that way every version of your code is contained in a single repository, so that way you can get the versions out of there. Deployable packaging, so basically the idea, if you look down here at this sort of diagram, is that I have this package that's in this version control system or repo, and then I install it into, say, Scratch orgs, which is basically what a SFDX concept for development orgs that you can use. The same code can then be developed to different environments, deployed to different environments, test environments, sandboxes, and eventually something like production. So this maintains a lot of consistency, and it really helps with how you sort of develop software when you have a lot of different teams involved in creating that. And of course, flow development and flow creators are often part of this number of teams that are involved in creating this, developing and writing this software. So you need to have deployable packaging. One of the things that comes part and parcel with this is the ability to actually require tests for all the code being packaged. And that's, of course, because you have so many different teams there. Every time you deploy the package, you need to be able to run all the tests to make sure they pass, so that way that we know that that'll actually work in the environment we're deploying it to. And then once that actually happens, of course, you need to then deploy the package to the environment. And when you deploy it, the expectation is that everything is active when you go ahead and deploy it to the environment. And that's, of course, because the code needs to run as the code was written, as opposed to like put the code on there, tweak it, and then have it run. Then you're not actually containing all your changes inside that version control system. So that's the concept behind the whole CI/CD setup. And what we're offering, Safe Harbor in our winter release is the ability to basically opt in to being able to follow this process. And I want to make this pretty clear to everybody because I don't want there to be any confusion here. What we're talking about here is an entirely opt-in process. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to touch anything and nothing will change in your life. But for those of us out there who work for large enterprises with large sort of delivery groups, this is a pretty high demand that we've been hearing, and so we're trying to meet that demand. So what this looks like is that in the process automation settings, you will then have the ability to click on this little checkbox here that says deploy processes and flows as active. If you check on this checkbox, you buy into this whole concept of CI/CD, And this brings with you the capability to, one, flow and process metadata file names no longer change with the version. So normally, previously, when you pulled in file names for the metadata API, you'd actually get sort of myflow-version 5 or something like that. Now it's just myflow. And that way, in the version control system, they actually handle the versioning. So this makes it consistent in that system, so they always get the same file name and they can handle the versions there. Something that really was very necessary in order for it to work with version control system. The second thing is that you can then package these up. And so, as I mentioned, these work with SFDX scratch ors, because that's sort of our version of how you would actually do development in sort of this manner on the Salesforce system, but it does basically apply to the metadata package. So it doesn't have to be with SFDX, but it works both ways. The third thing here to basically talk about testing for that package is that we're following the Apex sort of rule here, where you require 75% test coverage is required on all headless processes. So if you opt in to this requirement, you will then need to create Apex tests that provide 75% test coverage. And this is at the flow level, so it does not need to include all the nodes being tested, but each individual flow, 75% of them, the headless flows, because we do not currently have a good way to sort of test the UI-based flows, would require this sort of test coverage. This is actually hinting at a larger sort of project that we're looking to achieve, which is to give you better testing capabilities around flow. The very first step here, of course, is to provide Apex-related test coverage. We hope to, in the future, be able to have admins be able to easily point and click and create tests that can then be baked into this whole process. Because we understand, of course, that not all admins want to sit there and write Apex, and at least that's what we've heard. So tell us if we're wrong. But anyway, so 75% test coverage required on headless processes. And then finally, of course, all of this sort of leads to the fact that you can then deploy these flows as active into your environment. That means you don't have to go in and activate the flow after you deploy it. So that's the story there. Basically, again, just a quick reiteration. It's an opt-in process. Nothing happens unless you decide to let this to actually engage in this. And if you do engage in this, file names they don't change the version. You can deploy as active, but you must have 75% test coverage in order for all of this to work. Cool. So shifting gears yet again. Some of you guys have been hearing about this since last year. Some of you heard about it in TDX. Well, here's some more to hear about. We have a new flow builder in the works. Safe Harbor, Safe Harbor, Safe Harbor. The new flagship design tool for flow. It's going to be faster. It's going to be easier to use. It looks really cool. It has sort of BPMN notation style aspects to it, so people can understand how to build their processes in this. We announced it last year. We talked about it last year at Dreamforce. We're announcing it officially this year at Dreamforce. We have Safe Harbor, Safe Harbor, Safe Harbor GA planned for spring of 19 of this year. We're really hopeful that actually is the right date. And just to point out that the flow builder will use the exact same underlying flow metadata. So all of your existing flows will work unchanged in the new flow builder. So that means there's no conversion that'll be necessary. You don't have to worry about sort of messing around with your flows to get them to work. Everything just works straight out of the box. It's just that you get this lovely new tool to go ahead and work and design and build your flows with. So with that, I'm sure you would love to see what this lovely new tool looks like. So I have a quick envision here, just give you a sense of things. This is what we're looking at. Note the canvas, of course, that has all the different icons on there. Note the new sort of palette setup on the left here, allow you to do search, your variables, screens, etc. Let's say I wanted to create a new resource. So I basically click here. I pick my resource type. In this case, I have a list of different choices, but I'm going to go ahead and pick a variable. Variable API name description. As we know, we don't have to fill that stuff out because it's sort of pre-filled, and we'll go ahead and do that. And then select the data type. How about SObject? Let's go ahead and pick SObject, and then of course for an SObject, what type of Salesforce object? Let's go ahead and pick count. One thing that I should point out here is we have info bubbles now, so basically it gives you a nice description of the user's input in this example, what can be set at, etc. And then I go ahead and create the new resource. What's really cool is it then shows up here, have the variable name, access data type, source, and look at that, used within. I get to actually see where this resource is used within in different parts of the flow. So that's a really quick and dirty sort of overview of what it looks like. Obviously, love to hear your feedback. A lot of our MVPs, I'm sure, on this call have been engaged with us in this process. And again, big mahalo to everybody who's been helping us out and getting this thing out the door. And like I said, we're going to be announcing it at Dreamforce this year and hopefully getting out the door, safe harbor again, in spring of 19. All right. Now that I've built you up a lot of excitement about the Flow Builder, let's talk a little bit about Flow resources to get all this information that we've been showing and telling you about. A couple helpful Flow resources that we have. Obviously, there's Trailhead. I encourage everybody to go do the Lightning Flow Trailhead modules for business process automation. You're really gung-ho, get that super badge, then you really know everything that we're doing, which is super cool. We also announced the Trailhead DX, our Lightning Flow Developer Center. So definitely recommend that you check that out. It has a lot of good information in it. And then finally, we have our unofficial Flow website. It's possibly an unofficial source of unofficial Lightning Flow resources that are unofficially there. I can't confirm or deny either of those things, but it definitely is unofficially not there if you're the right parties, and if you're everybody else, it is definitely unofficially there. So I would check it out. It's in tinycc.unofficialflow. It's actually in the dark web, but we went ahead and created a URL so you can find it in the dark web, but it's unofficially there or not there. Well, you figure it out. Okay, so Lightning Flow Dev Center. Just wanted to make a point here. It's got a lot of great resources for you. I'd probably hit this up first because it's sort of your initial stopping point for everything you need related to Flow. It's got our Trailhead information in it. It's got our webinars in it. It's got demo videos and even more. Actually, one of the things we should point out, you should check out something like our webinar on Lightning guided engagement and the action list component. The action list component was recently GA'd. We did not include it in today's demo, but it's pretty cool because basically you can set it up with a particular record and then basically have the ability to launch flows directly from the component and then show the stages that the flows are in that component as well. So if you get a chance, check out that webinar or just check out the action list component because it's pretty darn cool. All right. Well, I think that takes us pretty much to time. Again, thank you, mahalo, for listening. We really appreciate all the support. And yeah, now we're open for any additional Q&A and anything, Jen, or you guys want to add.
All right. I'm going to wait a few minutes as people submit posts to the Salesforce Automation Hour Trailblazer community based on the roadmap items. So we'll give people a couple minutes for that. Michelle posted a question about the training, but you just covered off on that piece. Just give folks a couple minutes. I do want to note while we're waiting that having that debug function in Summer 18 is huge.
Yeah, we can go ahead and show that. Yeah, we agree. I should say I agree because I also have to build these demos, and I got to say the debug is super awesome. We're actually considering, and what we'll be coming back and talking a little bit about, what more can we use with the debug concept, but a lot of the flow output for debug could potentially turn itself into test. So something we're kind of noodling over if you actually want to go ahead and debug anything. But yeah, it's really cool. I am so happy that we're soon not going to have to be clicking on this stuff. Sorry?
Allow it.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't seen it, basically, if I have a flow, and by the way, this will also work in the new flow builder, I'll guarantee you that. You can go ahead and take your flow and run it in debug mode.
It also works for any existing flow that you might have. I remember seeing a webinar recently where that question was asked. So it doesn't have to be a net new flow that you're creating. It could be any existing flow as well that you want to change and debug.
Yep, exactly. So basically, it has all the information as I progress through the flow for each screen that's actually happening through all the flow nodes, the definitions, etc. as I go. Really cool stuff.
And another thing that is huge in summer 18 is being able to get the full flow fault emails if you're not the person who last touched it.
Yes, yeah, with the Apex distribution list, that was another really sort of big success set of idea points that we had on that one. Yeah, really glad we could actually manage to surface that. It was a little tricky because the error messages have to go up a couple layers before they get to us. But it sounds like we managed to pull it off for all the major use cases. I'm not going to demo that one because you actually have to generate an error and then go look at the email. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Thanks, Jen.
Have you actually on that had any feedback in terms of separating the flow and process errors from Apex? Because like as an admin, I'm less concerned with the Apex errors than with my process builder and flow.
That's a good question. I actually haven't heard that specifically. I could see how that might be a bit. Yeah, I could see why you'd want to filter that. Maybe you and I can have a chat, Jen, and you can kind of show me what you have in mind.
Okay. All right, I am feverishly refreshing the Trailblazer community. I can't believe no one else has questions. What about, okay, so we have Arnab and Jason on. Any process automation questions? Maybe not roadmap, but you have the two guys here.
I mean, don't tell me we just blew you guys away and you're all just sort of in stunned silence. I mean, I appreciate that, but definitely, like I said, it's your feedback, your support that helps us build this stuff. So really, if there's anything on your mind, just let us know.
I don't know if this is on your roadmap, but if there is an easier way to delete previous versions of a flow or process without individually having to go into each one, that would be great.
Yeah, it's actually something that we've kind of had a little bit of a think about as well. One of the things you can actually do is create a flow to delete those flows. So I think that's right. I think we talked about that. I'll go ahead and check. I'm gonna back off that statement. I'll just give you a really stern look. That's actually one of the things we were thinking about is actually creating a flow to help.
Oh, I see. As a feature that we would build.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. That might allow us to like build processes for it as well. Like if it hasn't been run for n number of days,
right? You can put criteria and then actually do the delete. Yeah. So that's kind of where our minds are at right now on that one. But yes, we acknowledge that we do have limits. Although I will point out again, safe harbor, that we are looking at raising some of those limits. So this will be less of an issue. But yeah, when you're starting to get close to those, it becomes kind of a thing that you have to do where you go back and delete things.
Okay, this is a very quiet crowd today, but Eric posted, "Thanks guys, I'm having a ball with the unofficial site."
Which we can't confirm or deny the existence of.
But apparently is very heavy use that we can't either confirm or deny as well.
All right, so rather than hold you up, because I know you're busy on roadmap stuff, we'll continue to have folks post to the community if there are any questions after the session. And we really enjoy having the Salesforce product team on here to share information with our community. And we look forward to having you back with future releases.
Great, thanks so much for having us. And again, big mahalo out to our Flow HANA and everybody at Automation Hour for having us on. It's a real pleasure, and we really look forward to giving you even more updates as we go.
Yep. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you Jen, Rakesh, and David for putting this together so we can present.
Thank you.
Thank you.